Hello, my name is Harris Zeiler. This is my second submission for Dr. Carey Roberts' History 701, and I've done some research for my possible dissertation topic, which is on the ideological and intellectual background of the Second Amendment. Um, I have three sources that I'm going to briefly talk about today. The first one is The Ideological Origins of the Second Amendment. Imagine that. And it's by a Robert E. Shalhoub, and it was printed in the Journal of American History in December of 1982. He does a good job of going through the intellectual background, the ideology of the right to bear arms on an individual level. And he goes way back to the Renaissance, other forms of Western civilization, and to English common law. And he does a pretty good job. My favorite quote actually is from Machiavelli, even though it's a good many hundreds of years ago. He has, to deny arms to some men while allowing them to others was an intolerable denial of freedom. Machiavelli's belief that arms were essential to liberty in order for the individual citizen to protect himself, to hunt, to defend his state against foreign invasion, to keep his rulers honest, and to maintain his republican character, provided an important foundation upon which subsequent Republican writers to build. And he starts there and he goes through Republican and libertarian mindsets, mostly in England, and then into America with James Madison and other founding forefathers. And he does a pretty good job. Now, he does well right up into the end, where he has a conclusion that I find a little bit incongruous with his speech before. So he has all of this background talking about an individual right to bear arms and how it led to the Second Amendment. And then in the end, his conclusion is, but we can decide through courts to limit gun rights, that registration is not a really limitation, and that Heller decision was wrong. And it's silly because there are no militias anymore. And so his conclusion really, to me, doesn't have much to do with his lead up to it. My second source is by a Nathan R. Kazukanich, and he wrote Pennsylvania, the Militia, and the Second Amendment through the University of Pennsylvania Press, Pennsylvania Magazine of History and Biography in 2009. In this next source, Nathan Kazukanich talks about how in the Heller decision, which is one of the more modern and the most recent big decision by the Supreme Court on the Second Amendment, that the Supreme Court based much of their decision on both Scalia and a dissent from the 1776 Pennsylvania Constitution Bill of Rights. And he does a pretty good job in going through how the both sides actually use the same sources, yet come to two drastically different conclusions. Particularly, I like that he says it's important to contextualize the debate, meaning that he wants to use history as a basis for creating an originalist idea. And then it goes into the past and how an armed populace was very important to the founding and the development of this nation. But in the end, he reduces the argument to a political debate on how to pay for the defense of the Pennsylvania frontier, going back to the days when the Quakers ruled Philadelphia and the rest of Pennsylvania. So he reduces the entire argument in the end to Quaker pacifism and how they were trying to defend the frontier as cheaply as possible without taking up arms themselves. Moving on to my third is the Second Amendment, Heller, and Original Jurisprudence by Nelson Lund. And he writes about the Heller decision, and he uses it as, well, he basically argues against the Heller decision, how originalist jurisprudence doesn't really exist, and how Scalia was not justified in providing a decision as he did. And I tried to find that, if you recall my first piece, I was trying to be non-biased, and so I found a few pieces that are opposing. And so the only weapons to perform the duties in the militia, which does not exist anymore, and that was the purpose for the Second Amendment, and therefore it doesn't really need to exist. Now, my own personal ideas as they develop, a general conclusion is that they meant for both a collective and an individual right to bear arms, and further research might bear that out, and it might not. I'm still looking. Thank you very much for watching my short video, and have a great day.